Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of The Mandalorian, Chapter 22, Guns for Hire. And this was a very strange episode. This is the 6th episode of the season, so we have 2 episodes left, and we get this one, which technically kind of fits more along the lines of the one where we investigate the Imperial Amnesty Program, where a lot of shit happens in the middle of the episode that by itself as being spun out of as like a standalone episode would have been really kind of cool. But we're getting towards the end of the season and we need a better track on what the whole plot's going on with, and we get the plot done at the end in a kind of a logical way that did wrap up stuff, at least in a way that I'm alright with. And that's the thing. It's mainly the execution that really gets it wrong in this episode, rather than what goes on. Like, I don't mind the cameos, and I don't mind the middle story that we get, but it does nothing for the plot. It does stuff for characters and kind of development, and then a little bit at the end we get character development as well, but it's done in such a weird, funky way, and kind of fucked up way, that I completely understand why people are like, what the fuck's going on here? So, we start off the episode, and we see this pretty much Quarren ship going through, it's a Mon Calamari, and they pretty much get hailed by what they believe is an Imperial cruiser, and it's like, nah, I'm not an Imperial warlord, we're actually here on a mission to get back the dude that you got on that ship. And at first you're thinking, oh god, they're slavers or whatnot, but no, this Mon Calamari ran away, was in love with this woman, and the Mandalorians, which is Axe Wolves, and his team that had split off from Bo-Katan, they're just guns for hire. And it's interesting because they handle the situation actually pretty well. They don't go in bloodthirsty, they don't go in guns blazing, destroying shit. They're like, listen, I need that dude. I don't want to like hurt anybody or anything. We're just here on a job. I'm fine that you guys are in love and everything, but I'm contracted by his mother, and I gotta bring him home. And no matter what you offer as payment, that ain't gonna work. Then we get them kind of arguing and stuff. There is kind of cool stuff going on there, where we see the Quarren in a kind of water tank as she's commanding the ship, but then she gets out of it to kind of talk and everything, and the Mandos come on, take the dude, and they have to go to Plaisir 15. And that sets us up for what's kind of going on. So they set off for, we see that Bo-Katan and Din go into Plaisir 15 to pretty much get the Mando fleet back on their side, so that way they can do what they need to do. And they come down, we see pretty much some Imperial droids being like, hey, welcome here, complete direct democracy and stuff like that. And then they pretty much get sent to the rulers of the planet. And we see that it is, let's see here, Captain Bombardier, played by Jack Black, and the Duchess, played by Lizzo. And they're like, hey, welcome! And we see that Grogu has some stuff with Lizzo, the Duchess. She's like, oh, come here, play! I want to play with Grogu. Can I play with a baby? And I was like, yeah, a lot of people would do that. Like, guess anybody who sees Grogu would pretty much be like, hello. Now, granted, there's like some lines, and Din's like, what the hell? And of course, she like offers food to him, and he's like, Jedi flip, motherfucker! It's like, yeah, that's Grogu. And they pretty much just have him off to the side as we pretty much deal with Bo-Katan stuff. Now, granted, I don't mind that we're doing stuff with Bo-Katan. She seems to be the one in this show's The Mandalorian position at this point. We just needed a better kind of maneuvering of that. My thing is, I liked having Din and Grogu and him kind of teaching Grogu how to be a Mandalorian and everything. Now, granted, the biggest kind of downside to that is Grogu's extended life and how long it would take him to get to even like apprentice status as a Mandalorian because of his slower developmental cycle. So I understand that they're like, let's follow Bo-Katan for a while. But then it's like, oh, okay, we kind of want to talk to your Mando forces. And they pretty much lay out the whole kind of thing since they were headed over by a former Imperial and he's kind of still in charge, but not really as an Imperial. They can't have a standing army, so their privateer army can't come in. And they have this droid situation that's going on. So they're like, okay, malfunctioning droids. They've repurposed battle droids from the Clone Wars to pretty much do slave labor. Now, granted, I didn't know where this was going. I thought this could have potentially been a droid revolt. Like, all these people, granted, they don't like work. They have the droids that do the work, and I kind of wanted them to kind of explore that. I was like, ooh, that's interesting. And if you're going to go this route as a kind of standalone episode, that's fine. However, we don't have the episode count to indulge in that. Again, whenever I hammer on about certain kind of things of like season lengths, if you've got 8 episodes, you have to use all those 8 episodes very well to advance the plot. You really don't have time for filler. And this was filler as we just have Din and Bo-Katan doing kind of like buddy cop kind of stuff, which could have worked if it didn't utterly derail the plot that we were getting of pretty much Bo-Katan reuniting the Mandalorians and us pretty much spinning wheels as they're like go around trying to figure out what's kind of going on. We go down to the Ugnaughts to kind of figure out, well, first we go down to pretty much Doc Brown, who's in charge of the droids and everything, and there's an emergency shut-off, but he can't do that because otherwise people would then have to do the jobs, and it's a direct democracy, and they pursue art and everything like that, and he sounds really, now granted, I don't like this, that's a kind of system that I'd like, where you'd get to a point where everybody would do the kind of work that they would want to do, and they pursue their leisurely activities. Granted, hopefully not on the back of like a slave kind of population of like the droids or whatnot to do that kind of thing. There's problems here, and there's interesting things that like could have been like explored here. Like this is the shit that Star Trek would have really done. And here's the thing: I'm more partial to Star Wars, but I also like Star Trek as well. And this is a thing that like in the Star Wars universe, examined in this kind of way with the kind of rough and tumble and pretty much space magic and the Force and everything, I really would have wanted to see what they could have done with that. Again, but it's derailing the plot. So like, okay, let's kind of go and figure out where the next kind of droid malfunction will be. They'd seen everything as like, holy fucking shit. So they go down to the Ugnaughts to kind of see what's going on. This is where Din pretty much uses his kind of abilities because he had been friends with Queely in like the first season, and he's able to understand and speak to the Ugnaughts in a way that Bo-Katan can't. And of course they give them the information then, and it's kind of cool to see their different kind of styles with this. So they pretty much get where the next kind of thing could potentially happen, and Din is pretty much an asshole about it because, and of course his backstory with the Clone Wars and the battle droids going after him, it's like, come on, Din, don't be this much of a dick. He pretty much is able to like force one of the droids to kind of go nutty. It's really weird. You're thinking, okay, they're going nutty by themselves, but then Din pretty much comes in and forces one to go nutty. So we get this long extended chase sequence. Bo pretty much takes it out. They're like, what the fuck's kind of going on with this droid? And he had gone to the resistor thing. And it's a funny kind of inverse of what we got of like a typical bar that serves organics, where we see all the droids look back and we see Din acting all hostile towards the droids, and Bo-Katan's being like, ease the fuck up, man. And of course we get the side of the droids, and they like working. They've been repurposed. Talking about organics lives being so short, and how they don't want this to keep going on, and like stopping this because they've been repurposed to do work. And it's a very interesting way to kind of go about it, and a different kind of perspective. So I liked that. Again, at the expense of what we get towards later on. And he helps them out, and evidently they pretty much have this certain kind of oil drink that reconstitutes their programming, makes sure it fills in any kind of gaps or whatnot. Nepotith? Some kind of maintenance fluid. And they pretty much go and see if this droid had this. And they're all going nuts from this one batch. It's like, what the hell's kind of going on? So they pretty much get this tech to like extract it, and they see that there's pretty much mini droids, like nanomachines, in there that's reconfiguring their programming to act this way. And of course, the droid that pretty much sucked out this stuff starts going haywire because it got the droids in there. And they take it out, and we find out that it's got a name on it, that the person that was doing it was Commissioner Hellgate. And we find out that he is a separatist. He thought the Republic was corrupt. He hated the Imperials. And of course, he thinks that the word separatist is kind of derogatory and pejorative to him. But they present him to the Duchess and Captain Bombardier, and we see that Grogu's helping out the Duchess with like the Force and all that kind of stuff. But we learn that he's going to be sent to pretty much live on the moon of Paraquat, and that they kind of that he kind of gets his shit back together. And they thank them with the key to the city. They knight Grogu. And an interesting thing, the guards have like this mishmash of kind of armor, including some kind of stormtrooper armor on gauntlets and whatnot. It's kind of interesting. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't mind Grogu being knighted. It was just very kind of strange. It felt like a buddy cop comedy kind of thing. Or Castle, if you've seen that show. Where you're trying to solve a mystery and everything. Like those kind of crime procedurals. It works, but I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this right now, and why the fuck are we going like this? That's the weird shit for me here. So, now they're granted their audience, they go out, we see Axe Woves, and thus begins one of the weirdest kind of things possible. Now, I say this is one of the weirdest kind of things possible because Din asks Bo what her plan is. She's like, I'm kind of going to make it up as I go along. And she immediately challenges him for control of the Mando Force. And he's like, fuck that noise, I'm gonna fight your ass. So they get a fight scene. Now granted, I like this fight scene because it's all different. We see different kind of tactics and see character through the action. However, it's almost immediately undone because he's like, we're not gonna follow you because you don't have the Darksaber. And then Din's like, I got defeated by an enemy. She defeated that enemy that defeated me, and thus she is the rightful heir to the Darksaber. I'm like, and we couldn't have done this before? Now granted, I thought that this was kind of the way it was going to go. But he could have just done that beforehand and even recognized this fact and told this fact to them and just been done with it. And the thing is, I don't mind if we take some of it and have Din kind of in the background and Grogu in the background as we see Bo-Katan trying to unite the Mandos or having him more integral in the Mandos. Whole plot of retaking Mandalore. I get that. But it's just really weird in that they don't know how to handle Din and Grogu and Bo-Katan and how the story's working out. The execution of these stories is what irks me the most. Even though I got enjoyment out of this episode, and I like where we went character-wise with all this and got to the point that I pretty much knew, it's how we got there and how it kind of works out. It's not the worst thing ever, but it's like, come on. The structure and everything that we've gone through. Even though there are things that I've liked here, like seeing the Imperial Amnesty Program, seeing Din and Bo-Katan just go on a fuck-off kind of adventure to kind of investigate some weird shit going on with droids. These are alright in theory, and can work in as just standalones to give us breathing room and character development and growth in like a 22-episode season. This is an 8-episode season, and it is not really laid out a very constructive plot other than understanding the intricacies of the Mandalorians and getting Bo-Katan to a place where she can unite them and go and reclaim Mandalore and potentially take the story forward for what the Mandalorians can go and do from there. Now, granted, they're going to get some shit that goes nutty because Mandalorians have been linked to the release of Moff Gideon. So we'll have to see if Axe Wolves and his fleet of Mandalorians are involved, if there's a splinter cell, how the New Republic will deal with a resurrected Mandalore, and how they're going to deal with, like, Mandos on the loose. Are they going to go after them themselves? Will they task Bo-Katan and the reformed Mandalore with going after these Mandalorians? Will they instead instigate a claim? There's a lot of interesting stuff there that should have been the main overall plot of this. We don't have time for side quests and fuck-off kind of territories in these kind of seasons. Honestly, I would have taken weird one-off kind of just one-shot episodes that deal with these kind of things that are just like Tales from the Star Wars or something like that. You know what I mean? Just a fucking series where you actually explore these integral kind of points, because they're trying to do too much in shows that don't have time to do them. So I can understand why people were like fucking confused with this episode, and you're like, what the fuck's kind of going on here? So it does end with Bo being given the Darksaber by Din, and of course igniting it and everything, and that's kind of where we end up. Sorry about that. Yeah. And it's like, okay, it took us a while to get to this place that we knew we were going to get to, and that's not a problem. Even though we get to a point that we're pretty much like, I'm pretty sure we're going to get here, and it's how we get there. It's how we feel when we get there, and what kind of goes on. Predictability in a story is not inherently a bad thing, unless you go, okay, they're gonna shoot that kneecap, thunder crack into that dude's crotch with a nice fucking kick, and then fucking fastball special fucking Grogu to eat somebody's face off. And it happens exactly like that because you can just telegraph and understand how that shit goes down. That's a completely different matter, and you're potentially going into the territory of like extrasensory perception and shit, my friend, and seeing into the future. But a predictable story following certain kind of archetypes and tropes and cliches is not inherently bad. It's how you do them, how you get your characters to do them, and what kind of goes on with them. I don't mind Bo-Katan getting the Darksaber because she can actually utilize it. Because they just had Din not being able to utilize it, fuck around in a kind of circle for a little bit before it's like, yeah, okay, let her have it because she could do this shit. Because Din, I wanted to see if Din was ready and capable for that kind of leadership role. Or if they're just going to let him be the mentor of, young wolf, like cub and, wolf and cub kind of shit. You know what I mean? And I think that's actually the strength of Din's character if you just focus on him teaching Grogu, being a Mandalorian, and being pretty much like a Wild West kind of cowboy in the space frontier. And then having this potentially lead to a spin-off show that deals more heavily with Bo-Katan and the Mandalorians, with, of course, crossover kind of potential. I do think that would be the best way to go. Otherwise, we're now in the Mandalorian show where it's Bo-Katan, and we've got Din and Grogu completely in the background, which I think is a disservice to their characters, and also a disservice to Bo, because it's like, oh, she's only going to be watched if she's got them to, at least in the background, with Grogu acting cute. Now, granted, I like Grogu. I like him acting cute. But the strength of his character in this season when they actually go through it, his training as a Mandalorian, him having to deal with Din being captured and having to do shit on his own. That's the shit that was like, yeah, baby, give me that shit, I want to see that shit and how it works. Because even though he doesn't speak any like words that we understand, we can understand him and acknowledge him through his actions and see that as his character. That's what I want. I don't want Din, Grogu, or Bo-Katan to just be stripped down to, they only work together for this. Boba Fett got screwed over in his own show because they really didn't do much and do a lot well with him, and then the last 3 episodes were just leading us back into Mandalorian Season 3. It's like, what the fuck? They need to rework what they're kind of doing with these shows, because I don't mind interconnectedness, but when another certain character overtakes the other character's show, that's a problem. You're not balancing things out correctly, and I think you need to figure out what you want and what you need to do with these characters. So, my main thing is they need to balance these 3 main ones correctly, and hopefully that happens more towards the end of the season when we're trying to go out for that. Those are my worries. And again, I like Bo-Katan. I like seeing what she does, how she learns as a character, how she grows as a character, how she could potentially regress as a character, and what kind of issues she can have, because she tried to do this before. She's been trying to lead and help Mandalore, and she has gotten into problems and setbacks, but she's still trying to move forward, which is a great thing for her character. So it'll be interesting to see how she tries to lead the Mandalorians with the Darksaber and what kind of goes on from there. I hope that just doesn't overshadow the characters that have anchored this series of Din and Grogu. So we'll have to see how this kind of works out and how it shakes out at the end. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.